I see their pictures, their voice comes alive in my head, and that's really torturing.
A community trying to come to grips with tragedy. The University of Windsor is mourning those killed on a Ukrainian airliner in Iran. And behind this door, one of many lives cut short in this crash. Friends remember a talented student who was dedicated to his family. A live look here at Windsor's City Hall, glowing in red and white tonight in honor of the lives lost on board Flight 752. Mayor Drew Dilkins says that these lights will shine all week, with a memorial planned at the University of Windsor tomorrow. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. We have much more ahead about the impact of this tragic event on our community, but we start tonight in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is confirming that he has received intelligence that indicates the plane was shot down. The intelligence says that it's highly likely the flight was accidentally brought down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. 63 Canadians were among the 176 people killed in the crash. Hannah Thibodeau has more on what the Prime Minister announced today.
After another day of calls with world leaders, allies, and intelligence officials, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his national security team addressed Canadians for the second time in 24 hours.
The news will undoubtedly come as a further shock to the families who are already grieving in the face of this unspeakable tragedy. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile.
Trudeau says he has enough evidence of a missile attack, but not enough yet to say it was more than a mistake by Iran, or what role the tensions between the U.S. and Iran may have played in the tragedy.
I think it is too soon to be drawing conclusions or assigning blame or responsibility in whatever proportions. Right now, our focus is on supporting the families that are grieving right across the country and providing what answers we can in a preliminary way.
Getting answers for the families could prove difficult. Canada cut diplomatic ties with Iran in 2012, but Trudeau says Iran has indicated it would be willing to issue visas to consular officials who are on their way to Tehran to support the families. But so far, Iran is not granting Canada any access to the official investigation.
The PM says he's been told the 2 black boxes that were recovered from the wreckage will remain in Iran, but Ukrainian investigators will have access. And Trudeau says that the Ukrainian president has assured him that Canada will have a role in the investigation. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
5 of the people on board Flight 752 were part of our community here in Windsor, remembered as leaders at the University of Windsor. A memorial's been set up at the engineering building where most of these students could be found during their time here. The CBC's Katerina Georgieva is there tonight joining us live. Kat, what's the day been like for the campus?
Chris, the grief here is truly palpable. The 5 people who died, they were a really significant part of the community here. Some of them were students in these very halls. We know that there is a counselor on standby for anybody who is in need of additional support. And just this morning, staff here set up a room where people can go to mourn. And I was actually allowed into that room, into that space, and you could really feel the weight in that room. Some people were crying, sharing in the grieving process, just trying to make sense of something so unimaginable. The images of the bright faces that lost their lives as a devastated community tries to find comfort in one another. More than 100 people have come through this room so far to pay their respects and silently mourn.
I couldn't convince myself that she was in that plane, but unfortunately they were. I couldn't see the pictures. I don't know.
Samina Mehri was friends with Samira Bashiri and her husband Hamid Sitare Kokab. When she realized they were on the same plane that crashed, she couldn't believe it.
I put myself instead of them. They were in the plane thinking that they are leaving their parents, families, and I'm sure that their tears were on their faces while they were leaving home, but they're not here now.
Naseem Rezai is mourning her friends Zahara Nagibi and Mohammed Abbas Porgaderi. Rezai explains that the Iranian community is very tight-knit, and the couple was among the first people she and her husband, a student at the school, met when they arrived in Windsor.
I can't say anything but good things because they were truly good to everyone. They were really supportive. It is hard to live here. When you enter a new country, you need information, you need guides, you need help. And these guys were really supportive. They would help each other.
This tightly knit community she describes is reflected in the memorial room.
I'm witnessing these students come together in a way I don't think I've ever seen before. There's an intimacy, there's a connectedness, and there's a level of support that I don't know that any of us that are doing our best to support the efforts of the grieving could do for them.
I appreciate everyone coming here and paying their respects and praying for them, but seeing their picture up there, it just, it makes their voice go in my head, and I remember our conversations, and it just gets alive when I see their pictures. Their voice comes alive in my head, and that's really torturing.
Just unimaginable pain there, Katerina. This story, though, it took a turn today. As we heard earlier, there's reports that the plane was likely accidentally struck down. What did those grieving, what do they have to say about that?
Well, Chris, they said that ultimately it really doesn't matter because they've lost their beloved friends, and that's what their focus is on, because why the plane went down ultimately doesn't change anything. It doesn't change their grief. And Chris, the university will be holding a memorial service tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and that will also be live streamed for any family or friends who aren't able to be here in person.
CBC's Katerina Georgieva live tonight on a very difficult story. Today, the university's president addressed our community, speaking about how this tragedy is affecting the school. Now, he also announced that memorial service that you just heard about, but what stood out to me was how he praised these five as leaders in our community.
These individuals are key members of our University of Windsor community, but also our broader Windsor-Essex community as well, and they will be greatly missed, and certainly we are in mourning. It's a difficult time. Our community is coming together. Really proud of our staff and faculty and students in terms of the tremendous leadership that they're showing through this difficult period. I'm really proud of them and what they're doing, but also grieving as well too. This is a real tragedy for our institution with individuals that are near and dear to everything we do as a university being lost. So it's difficult, but certainly we are doing our best to work through this. These were five extraordinary individuals, and they all, I think, embodied what our university is all about. It's about providing opportunities for people to really broaden their perspectives on things, for individuals to really grow and support not just their disciplines, but our entire society. And certainly what I've seen so far with all five is that they were making valuable contributions to their disciplines. They were supporting the broader opportunities of our institution, but also they were important people within our community, and the roles that they all played individually and collectively in terms of making our institution such a great place. It's because of people like them, and they're going to be dearly missed.
One of those people who will be dearly missed is Pedram Jadidi. He came to Windsor in 2018 with hopes of supporting his family and completing his PhD in civil engineering. Earlier today, Amy Dodge spent some time with Jadidi's two roommates.
This small kitchen table became the nightly gathering spot for these friends. The three would talk about their day, troubleshoot homework, and plan for their life after university. His chair still at the table, and the door to his bedroom is still locked. But today, Moin Nadeli uses his key for the first time to unlock Jadidi's room, And with that, he unlocks a new wave of emotions.
I'm trying to deal with this situation, to not honestly remember because I'm crying, and then it gives me some sense of, okay, stress or something like that. But this is something that we have to deal with this.
This bedroom was locked a month ago when Jadidi returned to Iran to be with his mother, just a few months after his father's death. His dedication and loyalty to his mom and sister was embedded in who Jadidi was and highly noted by his friends.
We know that he had also eye problem because his eyes was very big. But instead of buying eyeglasses for himself, he bought that one for her mother. So that was very, I honestly learned a lot of things from this relation. How can a mother can be important for a person?
But his bedroom says a lot about who he was. Right inside the door still stands his only possession, his bicycle. Beside his bed, he kept a mask from Halloween.
One of our tradition, but he really liked such a tradition. And this is shoes that he bought for the Canada because the cold weather, but never he couldn't use this stuff. And
he was known for being organized with everything in its place. And although he wasn't known for cooking, he was known for what's under this tea towel.
All his dishes, we put them into the actually kitchen, but he always put them here, and then yeah.
For now, his roommates have agreed to lock Jadidi's door, a symbolic way to keep the last physical reminder of Jadidi still intact, while they hold on to the memories and those final text messages that said, "See you soon." Amy Dodge, CBC News, Windsor.
To Washington now. The already volatile standoff between the U.S. and Iran is becoming far more complicated, with intelligence showing that Iran shot down the Ukrainian passenger plane, possibly accidentally. Ongoing tensions may ramp up. The CBC's Katie Simpson reports.
New video shows the moment the plane was struck. Intelligence officials believe this is the aftermath of an Iranian missile striking a Ukrainian passenger plane shortly after takeoff in Tehran.
It has nothing to do with us. It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood, and somebody could have made a mistake.
President Donald Trump called the crash tragic, with all signs pointing so far to this being an accident.
It'd be an outrage if true. What I would do if I were the president, I'd reach out, send my condolences to the Canadian people and to the Prime Minister, and try to rally the world around the idea that we shouldn't accept 40 more years of state-sponsored terrorism. We're not the bad guy here, it's the Ayatollah.
The apparent strike took place shortly after Iran fired 16 ballistic missiles at U.S. military bases in Iraq. American news networks say the errant missiles likely came from Iran's anti-aircraft missile system, which was operating after that launch. Tehran targeted U.S. troops in retaliation for the American decision to kill Iran's most powerful military general in a drone strike.
In our view, the administration conducted a provocative, disproportionate airstrike against Iran, which endangered Americans, and did so without consulting Congress.
Washington is divided, mostly along partisan lines, over the escalating tensions in the Middle East. Democrats are trying to limit the president's military options through a resolution in Congress, though it will likely be defeated in the Senate.
What happens next could largely depend on what investigators discover about the crash. American authorities have now been invited to help out in that investigation after Iran originally rejected offers of help. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
A Nigerian family who were on the verge of being deported are allowed to stay in Canada for the time being. As spokesperson for the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada says that the Bakari family has been issued temporary resident permits for a period of 6 months. Now, the family was set to be deported yesterday. The Canada Border Services Agency confirmed the cancellation of the family's removal following word of the temporary stay. Now, despite female genital mutilation being outlawed in Nigeria in 2015, the Bakari family says it fled the country in 2017 out of fear that it could still happen to their daughter. We have an update today on the Gordie Howe Bridge project. 5 pedestrian bridges will accompany that bridge on the Detroit side.
I'm very pleased about this being such a great day for the city of Detroit, for the state of Michigan, for the United States, and for Canada. This project's good for the community, our economy, and countless people who are going to use this new pedestrian bridge and bridges.
These designs were finalized for the pedestrian bridges. They'll be placed along the I-75 freeway. Now, as for the Gordie Howe Bridge, construction is ongoing with groundwork continuing here in Windsor, but there are still some issues on the American side. About 10% of the land still needs to be collected.
One parcel of property or owner of property where there's ongoing litigation, but court orders have been entered giving us possession of everything.
They're expecting to have those parcels of land over the next year or so. The Bridge Authority says construction is on time and on budget. The Gordie Howe Bridge is still expected to be opened in 2024. CBC News has learned that Sarnia-Lambton MP Marilyn Gladu is running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. She's the first caucus member and the only woman so far to declare her intention to run. The 58-year-old is currently serving a second term as MP, and she says if elected, she would come up with a better climate plan than the one Andrew Scheer presented in last October's election.
Let people understand that if Canada doesn't leverage our technology to the people who are the major contributors, we're going to continue to experience the impacts of climate change with floods and wildfires. But we won't have an impact if we don't help other countries. We're less than 2% of the issue. So we can lead here at home, but we have to leverage that to the world.
A live look outside here. You can see the lights at City Hall shining in honor of the victims of Flight 752. There will be a memorial tomorrow at the University of Windsor. We'll be covering that on cbcnews.ca, our website, Facebook as well. Coming up, we'll have the weather forecast. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, we've got a flood warning for part of Leamington. We've got a flood watch for part of our region. The special weather statement, just so much being thrown at us right now here, eh?
Yes, a lot of active weather, and it's because of the system that's making its way in. Chris, it has a lot of moisture to work with because it's coming up from the Gulf. It's pumping that moisture up from the Gulf, and that's why we have concerns with flooding, especially some of the areas that are quite vulnerable to this. We are talking about some heavy amounts of rain, and I'll get into the specifics with this. I also want to give you kind of the timing so you can try and plan. It is over the weekend, of course. Rainfall amounts in the range of 50 to 70 millimeters, and I've got it going sideways because at times with stronger winds, we will be seeing that blowing around. Now, there may be a changeover Saturday. I say may because it could stay, that line could stay a little further to the north of us, which would be nice, but we may get a period of some freezing rain and ice pellets in there. And if you're certainly traveling around southern or eastern Ontario, I don't recommend it, especially not Saturday and Saturday night because of some slick conditions. Our temperatures, this is the one positive thing. Boy, this is also bringing up some of that mild air from the Gulf. So 3 degrees now, but that temperature is going to keep going up overnight tonight, and wait till you see tomorrow. So starting to see some of those showers, light in nature, but working their way towards us. We get that later on this evening through the overnight, somewhat spotty at times. The special weather statement in place, it goes all the way towards the nation's capital from Environment Canada, but we'll likely see some more things dropping as we get closer to the event. We time it out like this. You see some of that heavier rain into tomorrow morning, and then there'll be some breaks at times. So Friday's not the worst day, really. Friday night, especially into Saturday, that's when that heavier batch comes through, and then you see that freezing line where we get into some of that mix. That should stay to the north. It's going to be a battle, though, and any ice, that accretion that we get, so it builds up, that makes the tree limbs heavier, power lines get heavier with strong winds. It can pull things down, so that's something to be kind of mindful of. But the rain and flooding will be likely our biggest concern for southwestern Ontario when you're looking at some of the amounts here going over 60 millimeters of rain, potentially 70 millimeters in some cases. So 10 degrees, that's the good news I can give you. Saturday, 8, and then on the backside, things will be cooling down, Chris.
Wow, you almost wish it would chill off a little bit just so it was snow instead of the wet stuff, right? It's just too much.
Yeah, and it's funny when the things you think you wouldn't wish for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Speaking of things we would wish for, I wish this was my view out of my window every single day, especially this week. Lindsay sent this one in from Tecumseh. You can see a cat playing with an albino squirrel there. This is something that you don't see every single day, but a beautiful shot. If you have a weather shot taken anywhere in Windsor, Essex, please send it our way. If it has an animal in it, all the better. You go to our Facebook page, you can post on our wall. You can also email us directly, windsor@cbc.ca. You can also take us on Instagram or Twitter @CBC Windsor. Prince Harry and Meghan are bucking the Buckingham Palace, resigning from their royal roles. But what exactly does that mean? We'll explain next. Royal watchers say that Buckingham Palace is scrambling today to deal with the fallout from Prince Harry and Meghan's bombshell announcement yesterday. They told the world on social media that they're effectively resigning as senior royals. Renee Filippone has more from London.
It was a visit that looked like the kickoff to a new year on the job, but Tuesday's trip to Canada House looks more like a goodbye. In a surprise press release, the couple said, "We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent, while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen." Harry and Meghan will split their time between the UK and North America, perhaps even Canada, a country they both have connections to and visited recently.
Harry and Meghan are not courting popularity. Harry is haunted by what happened to his mother. He also is clearly, as she is, deeply unhappy with a royal role.
UK media are reporting the move came as a surprise to the royal family and that they are angry and hurt. Buckingham Palace is calling the decision complicated and that it will take time to work it through.
I see them now, to some extent, as setting up a kind of rival royal court or institution away from things, which frankly never really works because, as I say, the main job of the royal family is to support the monarch, whoever that happens to be.
It's been a tough year for the couple, who have felt attacked by the media and are fighting back in lawsuits. During an interview on a trip to Africa, Meghan opened up about how difficult things have been. Reaction to their decision on the streets of London is mixed.
The kind of scrutiny and kind of the way that the media was portraying Meghan Markle, I can see why they would feel the need to step back.
I just hope they can fund themselves for their new ventures in life rather than from the public purse.
And it seems some are more than ready to show the Sussexes the door. Their wax figures are already gone from the royal family display at Madame Tussauds. Renee Filippone, CBC News, London.
6:29 p.m. and that is it for CBC Windsor News. We leave you tonight with this shot of City Hall lit up in honor of the victims of the flight that crashed. Again, 5 people from Windsor being mourned. There will be a memorial service tomorrow at the University of Windsor at 1 p.m. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.